Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Access Granted Small Business Resource Webinar. I am Dr. Portia Jackson, Business Development Manager with the City of Houston's Office of Business Opportunity. We are so glad that you have joined us today. We are going to cover business resiliency. We have 4 experts here today that are going to show a wealth of information about how you can start, create your business, and really we're going to go focus on financial aspect of business resiliency. We're going to talk about social media management and also having a resilient mindset. And so before we get started, I just wanted to kind of give you some background. We started this webinar series to provide you and connect small business owners with the resources. So if you go to our website at houstontx.gov/OBO, you'll see on our website there is a red bar, and that is our COVID-19 Information Resource Hub. There's a plethora of information there, and sometimes we understand that it can be overwhelming. So what we wanted to do with this webinar series is to pull out and highlight some of those resources that are available and connect you with those folks who are the faces, who are the gurus behind the resources, so that you can get the information that you need, so that you can be resilient, so that you can get through this time and just know that it is a difficult time, but we're going to get through it together. So I just want to share some housekeeping notes. Please make sure that you remain on mute so that we can make sure we hear everyone as they are speaking. We will also have Q&A towards the end of the call. But feel free, we do have a chat feature. So any questions you have, any burning questions, make sure you type those in the chat feature. We will get those answered for you. Also, you can also feel free to share your questions at the Q&A portion, and then that's when you can unmute your audio. And this is our 4th episode in the series. So if you're interested in our other 3 episodes, which I think you really should be, there's a lot of information that was going on we talked about financial pieces, events that were going on, how to get your business converted from just the physical interaction to virtually doing business. All that information, all those past webinars, and are on our YouTube page at HoustonTXOBO. And just to let you know, this webinar is being recorded and we are on Facebook Live. So hello to everybody on Facebook Live that's watching. We are glad that you are here. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so we can start the webinar and meet our guest experts. And just a moment here. So our first expert is LaShonda Renee. She is the Assistant Vice President, acting as the Management Director in Texas and Manager of Business Services and Program Development in Louisiana for Trufund Financial Services. She has over 17 years of experience in community and economic development. And over the past 3 years, she has been focused on supporting small, rural, minority, and woman-owned businesses and entrepreneurs to recover from disaster and to become more resilient. LaShonda, how are you doing today?
Doing great, Portia. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Yes, thanks for being here. So I'm going to turn it over to you. Tell us about Trufund. Tell us about how businesses can be resilient as far as our financial piece is concerned, and any other information you think that would be helpful during this time.
Sure, my pleasure. Portia, will the PowerPoint come up?
Let's see if it came through.
Well, while you're doing that, I can go ahead and just talk about Trufund and what we do and who we are and who we serve. So Trufund Financial Services is a community development financial institution, which is often known as a CDFI. And so we're a nonprofit small business lender and business education and technical assistance provider. And so what that means is that we're able to offer access to capital to small businesses, in particular minority businesses, women-owned businesses, businesses that are in low and moderate income communities, access to capital that they would not ordinarily be able to get from a traditional banking institution. And we also provide technical assistance and business education, which means we really spend time getting to know our clients, understanding their business model, helping them to understand various aspects of their business to really improve their capacity for scale, for growth, and really just sustaining their business in ways that are really going to elevate their business operation and hopefully to expand and increase their revenue. So we've been supporting small businesses across the country since 9/11. And so we have an extraordinary amount of experience really supporting small businesses in their recovery and disaster, and really also helping to provide resources to make sure that they have an opportunity to redefine resiliency and really think about what that means for their business. And so there are several products and services that we offer. Again, small business lending for businesses that are looking for capital for various reasons. So if you're a women-owned business, at least 51% or more, we are a great source for you for capital. If you're a minority-owned business, we are also a great source for you. If you're a business that is located in a rural area or a lower moderate income community, we're a great opportunity for you. If you're a contractor and you're looking to mobilize on contracts, meaning that you got a contract and or you are bidding on a contract and anticipate getting that contract, but you're not necessarily at a level where you have enough cash to really get you through, to get you started working on the project, but also to get you through that period of award to actual payment, which for those of us who are familiar with the industry, understand that that can be a really long time. So we look for opportunities to do what our mobilization product does, which is to really support our businesses to be able to take advantage of opportunity. We also provide programming in various areas to do the same on this sort of business education and information front. So we have a women in business program that's really successful, where women are working in small groups and cohorts together, learning from each other, sharing their experience and learning from subject matter experts. We also have a small business resiliency and disaster recovery program where we work with those who have either been impacted by a disaster like Harvey or the pandemic like COVID-19 or any other thing that might essentially disrupt their business. We spend time with those businesses also in small group cohorts, really thinking about what does resiliency mean for them, and then really highlighting and identifying those challenges and risks that they have to being sustainable and maintaining business continuity. And we help them to develop a business resiliency plan that they can then implement to really support their ability to be able to weather storms like COVID-19 and other types of disruption. So the combination of education and capital really allow businesses to have those building blocks to really move beyond where they are into a space where they're really able to grow their business, sustain that business, and be a driver for economic development. When we think about business resiliency, especially right now with COVID-19, we know that the barriers to capital, the barriers to recovery are a challenge for small businesses, but they're really a big challenge and a big barrier for minority-owned businesses and women-owned businesses and those who are in underserved and distressed communities. And so the things that we know have been major barriers are a lack of access to capital, a lack of systems and protocol and procedures in place to really support a level of functioning on the back end, an ability to have relationships and networks to access certain resources. These are all examples of ways that small businesses really have hurdles to jump through that other larger businesses or businesses that have traditionally been able to access capital and other types of resources don't necessarily experience and at the same rate. So we really enjoy working with small businesses around that space. And we always like to recommend that people think about a few questions. So give me just one moment and I'm going to pull those up. So when we think about those barriers that I mentioned, like lack of access to capital and adequate business systems and plans, we start to think about a couple of things. So one is this idea of resiliency and what does that even mean, as well as business continuity. So when we talk about business resiliency, we're really talking about your ability to, or your strength of your business and the ability of that business to really withstand threats, disruptions, et cetera. And then when we look at business continuity, which is what we're trying to move toward, that is where we're able to essentially maintain operation, and we're able to keep our doors open, and we're able to really reopen fairly quickly and begin to rebound. And as we are thinking about what that means for us, there are a few questions that we encourage small businesses to ask themselves. And when we look at that big picture, we think, first, is my business viable? So as we've been working with small businesses when they're looking to access PPP, or they call us to get advice on the EIDL loan or other COVID response or emergency funding right now, a lot of times people aren't thinking about the fact that, you were a business likely prior to COVID or prior to whatever the pandemic or the challenge or the risk is that's happening in the environment. And the question that we're going to be looking for as a lender is, how were you doing before? So we know that you've been impacted now, right? And during the COVID environment, there's not, you don't really have to explain too much about, how you've been impacted, because for the most part, the small businesses, big businesses, government entities, we've all been individuals, we've all been impacted. And so there's not so much a question of, how you've been impacted or why, but it's, are you a viable business? Meaning prior to any sort of impact happening, were you viable then? And so the question is, how do you remain viable now? So do you have a business resiliency plan in place, which is something that really identifies what are the things that you can do now and what are the things that you can do in the future to strengthen your business? Asking yourself questions like, do I have the people and the processes in place to support continuity? Do I have a relationship with a financial institution? What we found is during PPP, a lot of folks were coming to us saying, I don't have a bank or a banking relationship, or I don't have a business banker who works with me and advises me on my finances. So it was really hard for me to access PPP. Or I went to a bank that maybe I have a personal account with, but I didn't have any sort of business relationship with, and I was not able to access PPP. And so people learned really quickly the value of having a relationship, having a strong network, and being able to tap into resources like financial institutions. But thankfully, there are organizations like Trufund, where we're CDFI, that's mission to serve those who are in that predicament, where they're not necessarily able to traditionally access capital through banks and other institutions. Also asking yourself about, what is my back office looking like? Is it in order? Do I have an ability to pull documentation that's necessary? Am I clear on, what my protocols are or my policies to really keep my business moving? If I were to become ill, or for whatever reason, I or a key employee are no longer able to be active in the business, can my business continue to run, and can it continue to run smoothly? And if not, what are those things that I can put in place to make sure that my business really can survive beyond me? And then asking yourself about adaptation and responsiveness. So even in COVID-19, there have been opportunities, and many small businesses have been able to pivot and adapt their business model, establish new lines of business, and really be able to take advantage of the market and utilize the resources that they otherwise were allowing to lay dormant because for whatever reason, they weren't able to engage in their normal business activity. They realized that there was an opportunity to take those same resources and then shift their perspective, and then be able to produce a new product or service to then continue having business revenue. So asking yourself some of those key questions, in addition to really having certain documents available and having a certain level of understanding of your financials, would be the things that I would really recommend. So having your plan, and you pull that plan together by asking yourself some of those key questions that I just mentioned. And then you have your package together, so to speak. So that would be your financial documents. That would be something simple as a copy of your ID. but also as detailed as a financial statement, making sure that you have your most recent taxes, having copies of bank statements and other really vital documents that you're able to utilize to go to a Trufund or go to a bank institution and say, I need capital for this, for X, Y, and Z. Here's my information to prove that I am in business, to prove how much revenue I've had, to basically demonstrate that I am viable. I was before and am now, and this is my plan, my projections moving forward for how I anticipate having revenue to continue to come in. Those are important key elements to making sure that business resiliency is possible.
Thank you, LaShonda. What I really captured too is that you mentioned about viability and making sure your business is viable. And sometimes when we go through these various disasters, people think that it's just sometimes that I'm affected and no one else was affected. And I like how you made mention that the banking institutions we know you've been affected. We've all been affected. So we can eliminate that. But how are you doing before this time? And so when you mentioned about having a relationship with a financial institution, can you explain how can businesses develop that relationship with a financial institution so that when there is a change or when another disaster happens, unfortunately, but it's just the way our world is, how can they begin that process of developing that relationship so when there's chances for PPP later on or whatever may come later on, they are in that position to go to their bank and to actually take advantage of what's being offered?
So that's a great question. And the point around not if, but when, we definitely say that all the time, right? Prior to COVID, we were saying it. Prior to Harvey, we were saying it. And we will have to say it, moving forward. Disruption is inevitable. Change is inevitable. But the things that really protect us are our relationships and our resources. And so being able to come to a financial institution looks a little bit different depending on the type of financial institution, depending on the type of business that you have and what you're really looking to get out of that relationship. But initially, just knowing who your contacts are, right? So knowing who the business bankers are at, let's say, a bank, connected with a program officer or a business development officer at an organization like Trufund, and then staying connected, right? So making sure that you're on folks' listservs or that you're getting communication from different organizations, that you participate. For example, I mentioned we are a small business lender, but we're also a business education provider. So even when you're not looking for capital, you can actually develop a relationship with Trufund. You can actually utilize us as a resource. And you can call on us at any time. So that's a great way for us to get to know who you are as a business. And as you participate in programs, generally, it also helps us to understand where you are in your business and what you need. And so whether it's with a Trufund or whether it's with a traditional bank, having that contact and that individual who knows who you are as a business and they understand your model, then you're in a much better position when it's time to access resources and to be able to quickly move from I need to I have. And the other piece that I didn't really, I think, articulate well that I think is important is that the relationships, very important, but going to a business banker or a business development officer and not really knowing how much you need or what you need the dollars for can be a real challenge. So in addition to having the relationship, be informed. Make sure that you're going into that conversation, being able to articulate how much you need, for what you might need those dollars for. And if you're not sure, then maybe participating in a program where there's some sort of support to help you think through that and to really identify what your capital need is. But it's very difficult for an institution, whether it's a CDFI or whether it's a bank, to be able to help you and to meet your need if you yourself are not clear about what that is. So that would be the other piece that I would say to really pay attention to and be prepared to come to the table.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So everyone, you heard that. Be clear, establish a relationship, and get your documents together and in order. So LaShonda is going to stay on to answer questions at the end, but feel free to type any questions you may have right now into the chat feature, and we'll get those answered for you. And also begin we want to hear from you. So feel free to go ahead and introduce yourselves on the chat so we know who we're talking to and who's listening. So we're going to move on to our next expert, which is Nguyen. A little bit about Anne. She is an experienced digital marketing professional. She works mostly with B2B clients, and she believes that social media has an immense value on how you can connect, inform, and educate. And she speaks to various groups and nonprofits and for-profits about the power of social media, and she is here to speak to us today about the power of social media, especially during a disaster, during a pandemic of what we're going through right now. Anne, how are you doing?
I'm well, thank you. Thank you so much for having me on today. I'm looking forward to sharing some information that I hope will be beneficial for everyone.
Awesome, awesome. So kind of break it down for us as far as what exactly is social media? Because sometimes we hear things and people think, oh, social media is just Facebook or social media is just this. Let us know exactly what social media is, and then begin to tell us the important social media channels that small businesses should be engaging in. Mm-hmm. And then also let us know, do we have to be on all of them? Which ones are the most important for us? And I know it may vary, but I'm going to leave that up to you. So go ahead and tell us about that.
Sure. Social media, and most folks, as you and I were talking about this before we started, most folks only think of it as Facebook. So social media is any website or application that enables a business or a brand or an individual to share content. And content is just pretty much anything that you share, a post, a photo. So when I say content, that's what I mean, to share content in a connected social network. So that can be Facebook. LinkedIn is a social media network, even though it is more for professional connections. Twitter, let's see, Snapchat, if you've heard of Snapchat. I've already mentioned Twitter. Instagram. Instagram is huge, of course. And then the latest craze right now is TikTok. And there are many other memes or channels, like Reddit is also a social media channel. But the main ones, the big ones that we are all familiar with, are going to be Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, and TikTok. And I often get asked by business owners, do I need to be on all of them? Because how do I reach everyone? And the very short answer is no, you don't, because you would drive yourself crazy trying to be everywhere. So a few things to think about when you decide on where to invest your time on social media. Where are you reaching your customers? Where do your current customers live, in essence? Like, how do they contact you, or how do they get information from you? So where are you going to find your prospective customers? For example, a business may have the majority of their current customers and community on Facebook currently. And because they want to reach a different demographic, they decide that they want to focus on Instagram. So then move over to Instagram and make sure that you have a consistent stream of content going out on Instagram to build that community. And so it boils down to, who do you want to target? Where do they live, or where do they go find their content, their social media content? Where do they hang out, basically? And then decide, what kind of content you want to share, what kind of information you want to share on those channels. So no, you do not have to be anywhere. Find one or two where everybody lives and hangs out, and focus on those.
Okay. So does a business still need a website or any other digital marketing? And kind of explain to us what is digital marketing and how does that vary from social media?
Sure. The short answer is yes for the website. And so I'm going to take a step back and I'm going to explain what digital marketing is. When I mention digital marketing, most folks think that it's just social media. Social media is one piece of it. As much as I love social media is one tool in your marketing toolbox, if you so to speak. And digital marketing encompasses all of the digital efforts that you make to communicate with your existing customers, to communicate with prospective customers, to promote your solutions and services to market. And that's going to include your website, email marketing, social media. There's an entire journey that your customers should be going through. And that's what, digital marketing encompasses, all of those digital efforts or touch points. And social media is a very important means for small businesses oftentimes to touch the customers or the prospective customers, because so often there's not enough resources to build a website. So then you've got to, contact a company like Trufund, like LaShonda's company, to help you with this. And so if you don't have enough resources or the funds to start a website right off the bat, then that's where I typically advise small businesses to really focus on your social media, build up the community there, make sure that your brand awareness is out there on your channels, the information is out there, your prospective customers know how to reach you. And then as you grow your business and as you are able to build up your resources and your budget, then decide on what type of website you would like to have. And the reason I say this is because social media is essentially rented land. So think of it as, say, an apartment that you live in for a while you're trying to build your home. And your home is your digital property, which would be your website or a landing page. And the reason it's rented land is because you don't own it. Mark Zuckerberg owns it. Jack Dorsey owns it. Whoever owns each of these channels. And if tomorrow Facebook were to go away, I know the likelihood of that happening is very slim. But if it were to go away tomorrow, what happens to that community and all those people who are following you on Facebook if you don't have a digital property where they know how to go find you? So think about your own practices. When you're looking for something, what do? You go to Google. You do a search on Google and you find that business's website, you find that business's social media profiles. And so if there aren't any social media channels, then they still have to be able to find you in some way, shape, or form. And that's your website or a landing page. And when I say a landing page, I just simply mean just a digital page where they're able to find you, that you own, that you control, that no one else can take away from you.
Yeah. And I like how you broke that down, because I know when we're looking at businesses, we hear them, and then the first thing people do is like, what's their website? Because they have to go to that website, to make sure that it's viable, but that's that very first thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. People want to make sure that you're a legit business. And in today's environment, that means having some type of digital presence, whether it is a website or your social media channels, if you don't have a website yet. But I encourage everyone to work towards having your own website.
And so I kind of look at it as the website is like the brick and mortar kind of piece of it. And then the social media channels is, you going out and speaking with the people and going out in the community, opposed to, you have your brick and mortar in the physical sense, and then you go out to meet clients. And
that's a great analogy. Yes, that's a great analogy. I'm gonna steal it for future presentations. But no, that's absolutely a great analogy, because social media is there to help drive your prospective customers and current customers to your website, perhaps. And that's really where all of your information should be. And it should be updated as well. That's one of the challenges I know that small businesses have, is they put information up there that it never gets updated, and then people go look at their website and it's outdated. And I've come across this so often during this time where we were all at home and businesses were closed. I couldn't find updated information. So that's definitely something to be aware of as well.
So what efforts on social media can help businesses be more resilient?
Well, first off, I always, again, advise folks to think of the people who are on their channels as their community. Don't think of it as just followers. LaShonda mentioned a couple of times of how important relationships are. So people are following you or liking your pages or liking your Instagram channel or your YouTube. Oh, YouTube, that's another social media channel that I failed to mention. I'll bring up why it's so important as well in just a second. Because they want to develop a relationship with your business. Believe it or not, I know it's, you think it's your logo, your business out there, but these folks are looking to build a relationship with your business. And so if you think of it in that terms, that you're building a community, you're not just simply marketing this piece of product or whatever that you're selling right now. You're nurturing a relationship with a customer because you want this long-term customer. That's what's going to help keep your business resilient. You want a raving fan for your business who will not only continue to support you, but who will be out there shouting about your business to everybody they know. Because oftentimes, again, if you're on social media yourself personally, how often have you seen your friends post, hey, I need a referral for X, Y, and Z? Well, wouldn't you love for your community to jump right in and say, you know what, you've got to go talk to Joe's Garage. I've been doing business with them for years. They're, great, and they do a great job, and they're honest. Those are the raving fans you want. And that's why social media can help you to be a resilient business. If you just think of it in terms of really developing that relationship with your customer.
And when you mention raving fans, what automatically comes to my mind is Beyonce, because she has that beehive, and if you say anything bad about Beyonce, the hive attacks you. And so
exactly.
Is that what you're saying, that they should have these raving fans? So if anybody says anything about your business, you're about to get it.
Exactly. And I've seen examples of it where there have been bad reviews, or someone's hopped on the business page and said something, and the business owner doesn't even have to respond. Their customers already responded and said, hey, this, and this. And think about the K-pop fans. If you are all familiar with K-pop fans and their Twitter activity and whatnot. And so that's what you want. And that's why if you think of it as community and building relationships with both existing customers, prospective customers, and then all the people that they know, that will help you to really continue to have your business stay afloat even during these challenging times.
And just for my old school people, social media and the Instagram and what Anne's talking about, think about word of mouth. Word of mouth still is the most effective marketing strategy that's happening, and Instagram and the various social media channels help to perpetuate that word of mouth. So
absolutely.
Yes.
No, I'm glad you brought that up, because Pearl and I actually come from old school advertising, and word of mouth was very important. We used to be in the newspaper business, and we had fax machines, and you could read an advertisement in the newspaper as opposed to seeing it online. And so absolutely, word of mouth and recommendations from your trusted friends and circle is very important. And that's how you're able to gain that for your business on social media.
So to wrap it up, can you tell us what tools are available for small businesses and how they can, their staff can manage social media?
Sure. Once you've decided which channels that you should invest your time in to build your community and nurture your community, oftentimes I get, questions of, I have to run a business. I have to be there. How can I possibly be on social media all day long? Well, you don't have to be. And so depending on which channels you decide to use, if you decide that Facebook and Instagram are where your community lives, then both of those platforms now enable you to schedule post natively, which means that you would go to Facebook and you'd be able to schedule Facebook and Instagram posts. Now, the important thing to remember is there's data and insights and analytics that are available to you on both channels, which is another reason that it's very important to have a business page on Facebook and on Instagram as opposed to a personal profile, because you won't have this data to help you decide when to post. And what some of that data will tell you is when your community is online a lot of times, or mostly online, or when the most sets of eyeballs will see your posts. So that helps you to decide when to post, what type of content to post, to enable your community to see your content and then engage with you. Now, if you decide to use Twitter or LinkedIn for your communities, or if that's where they live, then both those platforms do not have a native way to, and when I say native, it just means on their platform. So you would have to use a third-party tool. And for small businesses, I typically recommend Hootsuite or Buffer. They tend to be a little bit less expensive than some of the other tools that are out there that are typically used by marketing agencies. So Hootsuite and Buffer are geared towards small businesses, and I said a more affordable tool. And so that helps you then to decide, okay, the majority of my community is on LinkedIn about lunchtime on a Tuesday. So then you decide what type of information you want to share, and you create that post and you schedule it for Tuesday at 12 p.m. and away it goes. So Tuesday at 12 p.m. you're helping a customer, and then that software has sent out your post and your content for you. Now, the one thing to remember is that that does help you to post and distribute content, but your engagement with folks still needs to be in real time. So make sure that you still schedule some time at the end of the day, whatever that looks like for you, maybe 15 minutes to go on there and respond to people, respond to their comments, thank them. So again, it's a relationship. And so if someone's saying something to you and you don't say anything back, that's not a relationship. That's a one-way street of just broadcasting.
All right. Thank you, Anne, so much for sharing that information. And she is also media guru here, so you can see on her slides that you have ways to stay and connect with her. And we also want to encourage the rest of our experts too to share their information so that you can connect with them. And just to bring it all together, we had two guest experts, and they're both talking about relationships are still important during this COVID time, and establishing those relationships to help carry you through this difficult time. So in speaking with that, we're going to move to our next guest expert, Nakia Bradley. She is the Deputy Director here at the City of Houston, Office of Emergency Management, OEM is what we call it. And she has vast experience in disasters. She right now helps to coordinate disaster mitigation, planning, response, and recovery for the city. And she has also had experience in responses for various hurricanes, flash flooding, the flu, national events, the presidential inauguration. Oh my gosh, I can't even get that word out. But the Democratic National Convention, Nuclear Summit, and the 2019 World Series. So Nakia, how are you doing?
I am doing well today. Glad to be on with everyone.
Good, good, good. So I got your slides pulled up here. So whenever you want me to advance them, just give me the word.
All right, so I would just want to talk a little bit about why I wanted to join the call today and give you guys some information and tips on business resilience in terms of a disaster. It was one of the things I actually talked internationally in last year for 100 resilient cities out in Rotterdam, was about business resilience. How do we incorporate our businesses into assisting with disasters, but also preparing them so that they can recover faster? We can go to the first slide. So when you think about that, like what are some of the things that disrupt your business? It could be everything, says 60% human error, there's fires. We also have everyday disasters. Pipes burst, your server failed. Today, earlier, I couldn't get another call off of mute, which it can be a disaster on its own, right? But how do we prepare for those if you're a business? Well, you can see my 1, 2, 3, 4 discussion here, which is have an emergency plan, figure out how you're going to communicate out to your customers, to your employees, have redundancies, back up your hard drive, have someone else, if I failed to see that there is an emergency, that someone else picks up the ball for me until I can get there. And then continuity, how do we strive even if we can't be at our day-to-day location? COVID has taught all of us that very quickly. Where is my alternate work location? So things like that come up very quickly. Next slide. So which is the best information place to find information, right? There's 1,000 different alerts. So I kind of want to talk a little bit about what the different alerts are. So a wireless emergency alert, we call it a WEA. That type of alert is like an Amber Alert that goes out to everybody. You don't opt in. We're spamming you because we need you to know it's important. A WEA is also geographical. So if I'm in California, I'm not going to get an Amber Alert for Houston. If I'm getting an Amber Alert, it's somewhere local to there. As well as OEM, we sent out an alert last week. How many people got that alert saying if you don't wear your mask in public, you're going to get fined $250? If you did, put it in the chat. So those are the type of emergency alerts that we send out here at Office of Emergency Management. And then there's the kind that you can actually for yourself opt in, which is Alert Houston. Alert Houston tells you about other types of things that are happening in your area. Like you might want to avoid downtown. We've closed exits for the demonstrators to peacefully protest downtown. Things like that, where you can get those type of alerts to know what type of things are going on. If I'm a business owner, I'm going to want to know that you shut off the freeway. So I can tell my customers, hey, you might want to do carry out or plan for extra time to come down here because my business is shut off from everyone due to whatever's happening downtown. Also other things like ready.gov alerts. Those are more national alerts and things that happen nationally that you might want to be aware of. Maybe there's a new public alert that's coming out that hasn't hit local news first. Sometimes you'll get them on that ready.gov one. And last thing, what we all care about here in Houston is weather. Which is the best one. I recommend the National Weather Service or NOAA to do that alert. This week, I mentioned to a couple of people in a different chat today that we'll be over the 100 degree mark for the heat index for an entire week right now. So here at Emergency Management, we're preparing for, do we open cooling centers? Where are people going to go to beat the heat? If I'm a business owner and I have some decent foot traffic around me, I might advertise, hey, 10% if you want to come beat the heat, come on in with me. You know, you can use an emergency or something happening to your advantage. We just talked about how do you get to people on social media, right? That's a great way. Engage them and tell them, come inside, beat the heat with me, get a free ice cream or a free dessert or something for buying some food. So just different ways that you see different alerts, but then also how us as an emergency management communicate with you. Next slide. Could I help with marketing campaigns? Hey, I'm user friendly. As long as you know, we can talk about preparedness too. All right, Go Kits. A lot of people talk about these Go Kits and why do we even need them? Well, evacuations don't always happen when we want them to happen. Let's say I drive down the feeder road. We live in Houston. We've all got to a feeder road and that water looked a little sketchy, right? You drive through it and your car stalls. You're evacuating at that point, right? So evacuation isn't always, I heard the fire alarm, we're going down the stairs. Evacuation looks different in a lot of different ways. So we suggest to have an emergency kit, and especially emergency kits for your employees and or at work. We spend more of our time, a lot of times at work than we do at home. So that emergency kit could be number one, cash. People forget about cash. I was here during Hurricane Ike. What wasn't working for almost 2 weeks at my house? Electricity, which means no ATMs. So having, some cash, having clothes that are in a plastic bag. Houston's number one hazard, flooding. So I don't want a bunch of wet clothes or wet items. So having them in a Ziploc bag or a sealable bag is important with your Go Kit. And you can kind of read the screen for some of the other things on there. As a business owner, my emergency kit looks a bit different. I need my licenses. I need my important papers. Those need to be in a sealable case as well. What if I'm not at work when it hits my business? I want it in that sealed case to keep my items from getting wet. Emergency supplies. We don't have a lot of earthquakes here, but I'm from California. When earthquakes hit, you can get hit in the head with something or get a cut or a scrape. Having, just some first aid supplies at work is great. And lastly, like I talked earlier about redundancies. So if my server goes back, now we have the cloud. Use it to your advantage. Back your stuff up to the cloud. And make sure that you have a way to access your important papers or important things. Last thing I want to kind of put that little note on that second bullet is pay attention to your local guidance. Sometimes the best thing you can do is shelter in place. Every time something happens doesn't mean you run outside or go run to leave. Sometimes it's better for you to stay where you are until the emergency folks let you know that they've given you the all clear. Next slide. Let's talk about insurance. Everybody's favorite topic. We heard LaShonda talk a little bit about what people don't have. A lot of times is insurance. And when that happens, you're going to need some alternate funding to figure out how you're going to get yourself back up and going. Number one type of insurance that people do not have is flood insurance. So that first link at the top, harriscountyfemt.org, tells you where you can put your zip code in and find out if your business is in a flood zone. Next thing I would think about is, if I am in a flood zone, how do I dry proof or wet proof my business? If you don't know what that is, I don't want to take you down the dumpster dive and what mitigation is, but just Google dry proof or wet proofing. And what that is finding different ways to keep your business safe that are things that you could do on your own. If you are in a flood zone, I do advocate for flood insurance. I live in a flood zone. I live off of White Oak Bayou. It's guaranteed to flood. Just wait. So if you have an opportunity to get flood insurance, get it. And then lastly, I want to touch on business insurance. One of the things I heard from both of our speakers before me is the unexpected happens a lot. That loss of revenue, where I had to close up for COVID. We haven't been able to come up with an augmentation, plan yet of how we can still do business while we're closed. So I'm losing revenue, but I still have a light bill, a lease, and other things to pay. Fixed expenses, right into rent and utility costs. And then lastly, if you have to temporarily locate to another location. So some of those things are, most of those things are covered by business insurance, but just thoughts, like I said, for you to think of. Most, after a disaster, most small businesses, 40% of them never come back. And after 1 year, 20% still are not able to maintain and stay in business. So it's important to try to protect yourself as much as possible as a small business to be resilient. Next slide. Almost done. Resources. So how do you find out information from me? What we just learned from our social media. And we own these platforms, which is even better, right? So Houston emergency.org, that's my office where we host things like if you want to take preparedness classes for us to come out and talk to your business or your organizations. Houston Recovers, if you've been affected by a disaster, where do I find funding? How can I connect with city resources? Houston OEM, that's me. That's where you find resources from my department and learn more about what we do here on a regular basis. And I always advocate for 311. 311 is a very, very useful tool for just about anything. If you have that, I would consider non-emergency. But even now, we did Beat the Heat yesterday for the press conference. And what did they say? If you have a senior right now that doesn't have an air conditioner, you call 311 and I say, I want a senior air conditioner. And they'll help connect you to the right person to beat the heat over the next week with an air conditioner. So 311 is a wealth of information from a disaster perspective, but also a resilient perspective. So that's it. I'm going to close up there, but I appreciate everyone giving me your time today.
Thank you so much, Nakia. You summed it up very well and quickly. So we're going to keep on moving, and of course, make sure you all have these resources to refer to. And again, this webinar will be on our social media pages, so you can always go back and to listen to this information and copy it down. So we're going to move to our final guest, Myra, the Maven Myra Shaw. And she is a life and business strategist, corporate trainer, transformational speaker, and author. And she has she combines her timely execution as a trader that she had in her previous life with her style of speaking and coaching and helping people to transform themselves and get their minds right. And she's going to talk to us about how to have a resilient mindset, because it's just not about our business, but it's also we are part of our business, and how do we have that mindset? Myra, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. How about you?
Doing pretty good, I have your slides pulled up, so whatever you tell me will happen.
Yeah, you can go to the first one. I made it easy and put it all on one.
All right.
Excellent. So our speakers have given us some really great information on how to handle our businesses really from the physical side. So what I'm going to be talking about is how do you, the business owner, handle your mindset, which we know is most important if we're going to get our documents together and be able to share on social media and have all the things we need in place. So I call this the triple C for mindset resilience. And that triple C is clarity, connection, and confidence. So if you can drop those C's in the chat for me so you don't forget them: clarity, connection, and confidence. So the first one is all about clarity. So we've all really still in the midst of going through this current pandemic, unemployment, civil unrest and protests. So there's a lot going on, and a lot of that is happening in our minds. So the first thing I encourage people to do is examine exactly where you are as an individual and in your business. You really can't go talk to LaShonda very informally if you don't know exactly where you are. So you could go ask for dollars or be trying to make posts on social media, but if you don't know where you are and what you need, then you're really just kind of throwing things at the wall and not really sure what you're going to get back. So that's the first thing. Take some time to examine where you are. The next step for that is, I call it to pause, play, or pivot. So the pause is maybe you discover that your business can't make a pivot to move digitally for whatever reason, and you need to pause your business or whatever it is you're doing right now. That's something that you need to understand so that you don't keep digging a bigger hole for yourself. So if pause is where you need to be, that's the fact about where you need to be. Play means that you continue as you are, that maybe your business was already set up in a digital way and you could really elevate and start doing more business. So you push your play button even during the disaster and keep going. Now, the last one is probably where most businesses and entrepreneurs find themselves, and that is in the pivot mode. And that means that you've had to make some adjustments in your business during this crisis. Maybe you were only brick and mortar and you've had to go to digital. Maybe you had a few services that were digital and you had to up your commodity in the digital space and use social media more and all of those things. So that clarity piece is the first piece. Be clear about where you are and what the steps are that you need to take in your move. And again, you've heard great resources today to help you with those pivots. We're not saying that you have to know all of these things by yourself, but make sure that you're able to reach out, which we'll talk a little bit about the N in your confidence with the resources you need. So that's the first C of our triple C, the clarity. Let's talk about connection. So connecting to resources that you need for execution. So we've heard from LaShonda, we've heard from Ann, we've heard from one of the other City of Houston departments. Those are all resources, okay? Everything that you need, as Ann said, the first thing people are gonna do when they look for the service you provide is probably go to Google or Bing. So if you are not there as a resource, then that person can't say, okay, I'm gonna use this resource. So make sure that you are the resource people are looking for and that you are also reaching out to other resources. This is a very overwhelming time that we are in, okay? I want you to hear me say, be gentle with yourself. I've said that probably 5 times to clients already today that are feeling frustrated and anxious and not really sure if they're going to make it. You have to be gentle with yourself. A way to do that is to reach out to other people for help. That brings me to my next point. Advisors, mentors, coaches, free resources, YouTube, LinkedIn University, all of these, there are lots of free resources. Sometimes the physical person that we need in an advisor, mentor, or coach is, we're human beings and we need physical connection. Okay, and that physical connection might be virtual at this moment, but when you're sitting on a camera across from another person and they're sharing information with you and encouraging you and helping you find where your holes are and how to fill them, that's a lot more encouraging than you just kind of watching a video or feeling like you're all alone. I'll give you my personal example. It is a very hot week. I pay a personal trainer, and the heat didn't stop me from meeting him in the park today. I did that earlier this morning. Now, if I did not have a coach, a personal strength training coach, I would personally have skipped the workout today. I would have skipped it yesterday. I'd have skipped it all week, right? That is just the nature of that. When things get tight, we as human beings, when pressure gets on, we want to let ourselves off the hook. It's not just you, it's all of us. So that is the value of being connected to advisors, coaches, mentors, people that can really help you walk through these resources that you need to use. It's almost overwhelming the amount of resources that are out there as well, right? Portia, you talked about the website that you guys have with all of this information, and you decided to break it down more in bite-sized pieces through these webinars. So don't try to tackle and take all of this stuff on your own right now. Even though we can't physically be with people, you know, that are not in our immediate household, use virtual in a way to support you and get what you need. Community is so important right now. And so the last C, we did clarity, we did connection. Now let's talk about confidence. So, you know, if you've been hit really hard, you know, there are people that have definitely lost loved ones. So you're dealing with business challenges, you're dealing with losing loved ones, or seeing people struggle physically, financially through all of this. That can, I call it, cause a confidence dip. Maybe you were running at 100 miles an hour, business was doing great pre-COVID, and you've come to pretty much a standstill. That can make anyone's confidence dip, okay? And I call it a dip because I want you to understand that that's temporary, okay? You're not always going to be in this particular season. So if you can build your confidence, oftentimes we need other people to help us do that. And understanding that failure is a part of the journey. I think in our Western culture, we think if we fail, if we have a setback, that's the end of the journey. We're supposed to throw in the towel. But really, failure is a part of the journey. If you're trying to grow a business and you're not having some setbacks, some stumbling blocks, I often say to clients, you're probably not doing it right. You're probably not stretching yourself enough. And so a failure is an opportunity to get the lesson. What do I need to get from this so that I don't repeat it in the future, okay? So failure is a part of the journey. And then this very last part that I'm going to wrap up on is called the CPR factor. And that is, you are capable, prepared, and ready. That's a Maven quote that I use all the time. CPR, drop that in the chat. You're capable, prepared, and ready for your very next step. So I often say, you know, if you're at step 10 and you're worried about step 20, you're feeling overwhelmed, you don't have to worry about step 20 yet. You are prepared for step 11 if you're at 10, okay? So all you need to focus on is, what is the very next thing I need to do to get myself moving again, to get access to resources, to get the money I need, to be able to be encouraged, motivated to move forward. Just the very next step. So once you've done 11, amazingly, you are prepared for step 12. So when you find yourself feeling overwhelmed and your resilience is starting to fade, dial it back a little bit and say, I don't have to have all of this figured out right now. I have to be prepared, and I'm CPR. You will never forget that. CPR, capable, prepared, and ready for my very next step. So that is what I wanted to share with you about mindset resilience. Know that you are not alone. There are other people struggling like you, and you have the ability to reach out and get the access to resources and support that you need. And that's just a slide on ways that you can connect with me. You can find me on my website at Myra Shaw. You can drop me an email at myra@myrashaw.com. And I am Myra Shaw on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, all of those great social media platforms that Ann mentioned to us earlier.
Thank you, Myra, for sharing that information. And I know it's supposed to be an hour webinar, and I'll take the hit because I was asking all of our experts a bunch of questions. So, so Pearl, I know you're there. Do we have any questions from our participants to our experts?
I'm not seeing anything on our chat, but everybody is welcome to pose any questions.
Okay, so we'll give you all a couple of seconds to post your questions. And while we wait for those, just want to let everybody know our next Access Granted resource webinar will be on July 30th from 2 to 3, and we're going to talk about opportunities. And you can register now for that at tinyurl.com, AccessGrantedEp4. Sorry, tinyurl.com/AccessGrantedEp4. And you can definitely stay connected with us on our social media channels that are listed there, and our website is there as well. And again, this webinar, along with the prior ones, are on our YouTube channel. And so you don't want to miss those. You want to definitely tune into those to get more information, a bunch of resources, a bunch of information has been communicated and shared. And it's for you. And please feel free to reach out to our experts, to reach out to myself if you have any questions later on, and how you can get through this process. So Pearl, did anybody ask a question or?
Yes, we do have one question from Tina. She says, will an email go out to register? And she enjoyed being on the webinar.
An email will not go out to register. You can just register via the link, but if you would like an email to register, then put your email in the chat and we'll make sure that that happens for you.
And I would also like to say there's so much positive reinforcement on our chat. No questions, but a lot of positivity. So that's really great. And thank you so much.
Yes. Does anybody have any last words before we conclude? Any of our experts?
For sure, I would like to share that in the vein of, or the theme of resiliency, Trufund's Small Business Resiliency and Disaster Recovery Program will be beginning in September. And so we'll be sending out our fall program calendar, which includes several other programs as well. And it'll have a link for folks to be able to register. And I can be reached at lrenee@trufund.org if you have any questions or if you'd like to know more information, or you can reach out to our website, www.trufund.org. We'd love to hear from you.
All right. Anyone else?
Do all our presenters want to just give out their contact information before we go?
Sure. This is Myra. I dropped mine in the chat as well, but I'm pretty much Myra Shaw, M-I-A-R-A Shaw, on all of the platforms, my website, my email, and all the social platforms as well.
Yes, and I put my LinkedIn connection on there, and then my website is antwin.com. So it's my first name, my middle initial T, and then win.com, and then my business page on Facebook is Amplified Marketing, which is the name of my business.
All right. Nakia?
All mine is located on the last slide of the PowerPoint presentation, but you can use my first and last name to be able to get me on LinkedIn. I didn't have the snazzy LinkedIn link like on, but that's okay.
All right, well, thank you everyone for the information that you shared, everyone for tuning in. We hope that this was helpful. We hear from you that it was helpful. Be sure to register for our next one on July 30th. And until then, we hope that you stay healthy and safe and you prosper in your business. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.